Pushkin. Kim Deal is an indie rock icon. In the mid-'80s, she joined the Pixies as the band's original bassist and co-vocalist. After the release of their debut album, Come On Pilgrim, in '87, followed by the classics Surfer Rosa and Doolittle, Kim took a break from the Pixies to form her own band, the Breeders. With the help of Kim's twin sister Kelley on lead guitar, the Breeders released a couple of EPs and 4 studio albums, including the platinum-selling '90s hit Last Splash. After a run with the Breeders opening up for Olivia Rodrigo's worldwide Guts tour this year, Kim Deal is once again heading out on her own with the release of her first solo album, Nobody Loves You More. The album was recorded by the late Steve Albini, a close friend and longtime collaborator of Kim's. And it features a slew of her other friends and collaborators, including Slint's Britt Walford on drums, and the Breeders Josephine Wiggs, Jim Macphearson, and of course, Kelley Deal. On today's episode, Leah Rose talks to Kim Deal about working with Steve Albini on the Pixies' Surfer Rosa and why he always regretted a specific contribution to that album. Kim also recalls recording the Breeders' first 2 albums, and she remembers how a group of surfers on a druggy trip to Nantucket helped inspire her new lead single, Coast. This is Broken Record, liner notes for the digital age. I'm Justin Richmond. Here's Leah Rose in conversation with Kim Deal.
Let's talk about the first song from the upcoming solo album, Coast. So tell me about that. How did that song come about? What was the inspiration?
The song was written sort of in 2019, something like that, maybe. But sitting down and writing the guitar chords and wanting to come up with what I thought it sounded like and what I wanted to talk about was this period of time back when I was staying in Nantucket in the off season in like 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I was living a very druggy sort of life in New York City, and I thought I needed to clean up, so I went to Nantucket. What I did was I got a lot of drugs and I went and put them on the island and did them. Eventually, I just decided I can't do this anymore. And one of the things I always will remember are these young island off-season workers, working. There was a daytime for them. They went out and enjoyed the outdoors, and they were so nice and weird. And I was like so depleted, but I was hanging out with them, and then they would be yelling about the wham. Check the wham. We checked the wham, and then they would take off. The wham is it's a model, a government model for wave action. Because they're on Nantucket, there's no huge Portuguese surf. So they, need to know if there's even a possibility of some waves. Then they would quit whatever they're doing, their, painting job, and they're getting the bar ready for the evening jobs. And they would run to the ocean, get with their stuff and their boards out and their wetsuits. The water's cold. They had to put on these. Yeah. And it was just like, the idea that people were doing an outdoor activity, it was really nice to see that.
Yeah.
And I always have a fond memory of that, thinking about that. And I just liked Wham. I thought it was cool.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, it had always stuck with me. And so that's what the song's basically. I recorded it out of Steve Albini's. Lindsay Glover is the drummer. Mondo Lopez is the bass player. He's the bass player for the Breeders, too, for a long time.
Yeah, was he the one who was in the I watched an old documentary. It was like a Dutch documentary from I think
he was
2002.
In there.
Yeah. From East LA
Breeders. When
you lived there.
Yeah.
I liked Los Breeders. I was wondering what happened to that lineup.
I was in New York City, and I was thinking I was recording, trying to kind of Rivington and Christie down, like again, to about 2000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a bar, surprisingly, and there were some dudes in there. It was really close to the studio, and I liked them a lot. And they told me they were playing with Leaving, the singer for Fear. They were in Fear. Now, obviously, this is not the OG guys in Fear, but there was a show and they were playing, and now they were hanging out in the bar. And I said, there's a studio nearby. You guys want to go hang out? And we played all night long. They were such good players. And I told them I'm going to follow you guys out. Where do you guys live? And they said, East LA.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going to follow you out to East LA. They were so surprised when I got there. I didn't even know what East LA was, but I soon found out when I got out there in East LA. Everybody was so cool. I think they told everybody to be cool to us. And everybody was. They would probably have been cool anyway. And we would go to Vernon. That was where our rehearsal space was. And we rode up at Title TK. And all those guys were on Title TK. And then
got it.
Also they were on Mountain Battles too.
Got it.
Yeah, but I wasn't living there during Mountain Battles. I was living there during Title TK. I went to rehab after the tour for Title TK. I went to rehab. So then I moved back to my parents' house.
And you moved back to your parents' house
after rehab.
After rehab to take care of your mom, is that right?
No. I couldn't have taken care of anybody. They picked me up from rehab and they drove me back home. And they told me on the way home, Mom was diagnosed, but she was fine. I guess once you're diagnosed, there are some obvious signs within the family that there's some trouble, but it wasn't huge, have you ever dealt with anybody with Alzheimer's or dementia?
I haven't.
It starts a little bit at a time and then it gets worse. So it was pretty new. So yeah, no, I wasn't taking care of her.
Okay.
Yeah, I landed there.
Got it.
Yeah.
What was rehab like? Do you feel like it was effective? Did the rehab work? What was your experience like there?
Oh, I loved it. I loved being sober. I loved not drinking. I haven't had a drink since '02.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I really liked it. I really like it still. Yeah.
Do you miss smoking pot?
I do. I miss smoking cigarettes.
Oh, you don't smoke cigarettes anymore?
No, sometimes I go past a big cigarette cloud and I'm just like, oh my God, that smells so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you miss it. You miss the weed, you miss the cigarette, the smoking stuff you miss.
I've heard that the weed isn't the same and it's kind of a bummer. Like you get too stoned or something. Well, I would smoke. I had to quit because I was a wake and bake person. So like everything, like I didn't just smoke when I drank. I smoked, 2 packs a day and yeah.
Yeah. So I saw on Reddit, people are saying that I guess you have a collection of hundreds and hundreds of solo songs that you've written over the past 20 years. But is this collection, the new Kim Deal album that's coming out, is that all new songs or is that some of old stuff mixed in?
I don't have hundreds and hundreds of songs though. I wish I did, but I don't. Thanks for rubbing it in. Now I feel like I'm just haven't been doing anything.
No, that was not the intention.
They are new songs. You know what, though? There are 2 that are not. But if you just follow me, you'll see why these 2 had to be on there.
Okay.
One of them is Are You Mine? That was a solo song that I've released on a 7-inch, okay? But I did it on a 388 Tascam. That's consumer grade. That is a 1/4-inch tape. The Tascam 388 looks like a huge 4-track machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got one driver. And so it's consumer grade. It's really no good. That's what I recorded the 7-inch on for Are You Mine? Lindsay Glover, Mondo, this guy named Jeffrey played guitar on it. I played guitar on it, sang 8 tracks. We played at the same time. Mic'd us all up. But the 3/8, it's an old dumb machine and it lost track 8. So the guitar player, Jeffrey, his beautiful guitar playing was gone. You can hear it. When you play Are You Mine, you could hear it in the distance. It's like a ghost track. So, of course, I'm going to try to fix it. So I take the 1/4-inch tape and put it on a different 388, that consumer grade. You can't go from one machine to the next. Basically, it's a cassette tape, bigger cassette tape. It won't go and play. It sounds warbly and out of pitch. So to me, that recording always sounded a little broken. I like it, but to me, it was like, oh man, too bad. La, la, la. So we re-recorded it professionally. We recorded it in Dayton, Ohio. In Dayton, Kentucky.
Oh, Dayton, Kentucky.
We drove from Dayton, Ohio to Dayton, Kentucky. It's 1 hour and 1 minute away. From one shitty place to an even shittier place. Let's say that. And then we Mondo was going through town. He was on stage with Morrissey. He was playing bass in the band. So he said he would do it. So we got some time. Lindsay flew out from LA and we recorded the basic tracks over again. And then I finished it up at Albini's. And then there's a pedal steel on it. And then there's strings added onto it. So I really liked the way it turned out. So, but that's why I recorded that song. And then Wish I Was is the other song on the new album that has been released as a 7-inch already.
Got it.
But it has vocals. It always had lyrics, but I never could make the lyrics sound cool. I sang on the 7-inch version of Wish I Was, and Kelley told me it didn't sound good. Just release it as an instrumental. Like, that's my sister telling me. It's like, yeah, it's not great, but still, gosh, that's harsh, Kel. But I did, and it sounded cool. I released it as an instrumental. But I always liked how, I even took Wish I Was and I went to Australia. I was doing a Pixies tour. I stayed over late. I went to the studio. I thought I can get some Australian players. We can pull up Wish I Was. This time I can sing on it. I have it. I've got it unlocked. It's going to sound cool like this. 3/4, sort of a country song. There was even pedal steel on it down there.
Nice.
And I didn't like it. It was okay.
Is Kelley usually the last person you play stuff for? Is she like the ultimate judge?
No, because, if somebody, how if you wear something and you say, do you like this? And somebody goes, yeah, you look good. You don't like it. You go, okay, great. And you change.
Totally.
Because it doesn't. But it's nice to ask somebody, because when you show somebody, you look at the outfit differently,
Yeah.
In a different way. But it's not what they said. It's how you're looking at the whole thing yourself. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like your mind is already made up anyway, but you're just asking to ask, but you're already going to do what you're going to do.
I'm not sure. It could be. This could be okay. But seeing it, the process of standing there and with another person in the room, like whenever somebody's listening to it, I hear it in a different way.
Yes.
Irrespective of what their experience was. They could like it. They could turn around and go, I really like that. And I could be cringing the whole time. It's odd.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Is Kelley on your solo stuff?
Yeah, she's on a lot. She's on Coast. She's doing the guitar on Coast. And then Disobedience, there's a song she's doing guitar all over Disobedience. And she's doing bass pedals on a song called Crystal Meth. She's got a cool setup, a cool bass pedal setup. And she's hitting those bass pedals. And Jim Macphearson is too.
Oh, awesome. Tell me about working with Albini. First time you met him.
I was giving him and Nash from Urge Overkill. His real name's Nate. I was giving Steve and Nate a ride in Boston to the studio Q Division. And Steve was producing the Pixies at Q Division. And Steve was playing, they were playing this cassette tape in the car because they had done some stuff in reverse or something. And they thought it was really cool. But then that's the first time I met him, giving him a ride to Q Division to be the engineer, recordist. He would never want to use the word producer.
Yeah, I was curious about that. So he more was just an engineer and he liked to kind of stay out of things and not give his opinion.
Oh, he has lots of opinions. He might say that. But I think what happened, during that period of time, he had a lot of ideas and we did. And he had this thing that he was taping us that we knew he was taping, but we didn't know which parts he was taping. And then he spliced it into the album and it was hilarious. It was really fun. I loved it. But then I think towards, later on, while he was working, I know that it bothers him to think that he would suggest anything to alter any decision that a band would make or to have any influence at all. He told Iggy Pop he was a plumber. He's not, what? I don't know why he had to go all that way. I like his ideas. He had good, cool ideas,
Well, I think it came because of that Pixies album. I heard him talking to Mark Maron. He said because he inserted himself so much and made that suggestion, he didn't like the fact that for history, the rest of history, the band would have to answer to his decision. and talk about why that was on the record when it wasn't their idea anyway. And I think that bothered him.
I have a feeling he doesn't know that we were joking. I think he thinks maybe it could. I don't know, because I don't get it. He feels so much remorse about that. You know, there was this movie called Stripes where there was a guy named Francis, and he was a real paranoid guy. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch any of my stuff. Don't even look at that sort of thing. And Bill Murray looks at him and says, "Lighten up, Francis." So me and Charles were doing a skit. And what's on there is him saying to me, "Don't touch my stuff." Something like that. I think Steve might have flipped that moment and thought maybe it was a moment of real, I could see him loving to put that moment on the album. He might have thought he was putting a real vulnerable moment of us.
Right.
I mean, I've told him it was, I don't know, but I've never heard him say that he thought it was real, but why else would it bother him so much? Nobody really talks about it. Maybe it make me think that there might have been something else he might have done that he hated, that he maybe made a really bad choice and he sees it. Maybe he came to realize that some of the arguments he might have had in the studio that went his way, maybe he realized, as I do, as probably everybody does, that listening to it after, 5 years later, it's like, oh my God, they were right. Yeah.
Could be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you said, Mark Maron, that specifically was bothering him.
Yeah, he talked about that exact thing.
But that wasn't a problem for us personally. Maybe he didn't like to be asked about it. Maybe he was being asked about it.
Or maybe somebody else in the band came to him and had an issue with it after, and that's why? No?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also said that you were one of the best people he's ever worked with and you're the real deal. And
yeah, he really likes me. We're like family. We were like family. Yeah.
What was it like working with him? Like, how was it different than other engineers? Or I know he doesn't like the word producer, but other people you had collaborated with.
Well, here's why. Okay, people might think he's a big dick about not liking it. He was a big asshole for not liking the word producer. But back in the day, as a producer, if I was to produce Natalie Cole, I would hire out the studios and the musicians. I would also have worked closely with Natalie to pick out all of the songs that people have submitted that we would be covering and trying out with the new musicians. As we rehearsed this record together, I would probably also have hired the musical director to work over the arrangements with her. Maybe we'd start with the piano, just me as a producer of the record and Natalie, and a pianist and a musical arranger or something, a musical director. So the producer is very involved. In the old days, that's what a producer did. So there are bands that just love Albini. And he is available to anybody. You call up the studio, he might answer and book your session, or somebody there who's at the desk will just book it. 2 days, you want to go in with Albini, this is what it costs. Okay, see you there. And so they come in and he's never heard of them. He's never, he'll do it professionally. He'll make sure he has the tape. Then he'll know what the mic setup will be, so it will all go quickly as possible. But, if they put produced by Steve Albini on the record, then it kind of sometimes can look like they went there to get produced by Steve Albini on the record, sort of sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's not really true. And so, he recorded it and he was the engineer, but he wasn't the producer who...
Right.
I mean, he had never heard the songs. How could he produce it without ever hearing the songs? He didn't produce the recording at all. He recorded the recording.
Right.
So I think that's what he was saying, that it's not like he doesn't like producer. It's like he doesn't produce. So it's just would bother him because it's not true.
Right. It's not technically what he's doing.
It's not at all.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
After a quick break, we'll be back with more from Leah Rose and Kim Deal. We're back with more from Kim Deal.
When you first started working on the first Breeders album, how was that different than when you had worked with the Pixies?
We were up in Edinburgh in Scotland. And we were there for, I think, 11 days. And I had Tanya and Josephine and Carrie and Britt Walford. You know, Steve is the one who introduced me to Britt Walford to be the drummer of the band. You know, he loved, Slint and Britt. He's an 18-year-old kid out of Kentucky. His drum playing is so killer. He's such a good drummer. Britt is an awesome drummer. It's insane. He's so cool. He's on some of the solo stuff. That's one thing and he's on this record. That's one thing I really think is cool about this record. Like, I've known Britt in the 80s. It was 89. He passed out at the pub down the road, and they do this thing where they black out your face if you pass out. He came back to the Edinburgh studio, and he had black ash all over from the chimney soot all over his face. It was done with love. I mean, they loved him, of course, but they totally sooted him up. So we had a good time. It was really fun. I loved it.
How did it feel for you just creatively, like leaving, or not leaving, because you weren't leaving the Pixies yet, right? You were still in the Pixies, like on a break.
That's right.
How did it feel for you creatively to have this different band?
That's a weird question. Like, how did it feel to get your hair cut? It felt like the wind and blowing. It's just like, I don't have an answer to that question. How did it feel to do music?
Was it exciting? Because now this is something
it was exciting.
new.
I mean, it's always exciting. It's exciting to do records with the Pixies too. It's super exciting. Yeah, I was excited. I was excited to be in Edinburgh in a new place. And
yeah. I'm just guessing from the outside what it was like for you to have a totally new lane where it's all coming from you.
It didn't feel like it was all coming from me, though, because we went to where Josephine lives in Biggleswade, the family manor. Wow. It's run down. It was a rundown. It's like 32 rooms or something of rundown. But her mom and dad were so sweet. And we cleared out one of the rooms, and we played there. We rehearsed there. Britt had drums. We had our stuff there. So we rehearsed at Josephine's spot, and then we left Biggleswade, and Steve came for a minute, and then we left Biggleswade and went to Edinburgh. So it just felt like we just were recording what we were doing. So, but it was cool to be in Edinburgh. Yeah.
And then at what point, how soon after that did you start playing shows? Like, when did you start playing the songs live?
We didn't do it. We did 2 shows for Pod, or maybe 1. I don't know. And I thought it was weird. I remember those 2 shows, and I remember thinking, this feels weird. I don't know why. We were shows. We were over there. I was nervous. We didn't have, the album wasn't out or anything. We just were there, had recorded. And then also, like, we don't have a whole set. We have, a 28-minute album or whatever. I don't think we did every song. It was weird. And I don't remember it really clearly, but I remember not enjoying it. I thought it was weird. Yeah.
How soon after did you start working on Last Splash?
Well, we recorded Pod in the December of 1989. Then it came out in 90. And then we did, let me guess. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say then I began rehearsals for Bossa Nova in LA. And then recording Safari in New York City and recording Bossa Nova in Los Angeles. And then recording Trompe Le Monde in 91. So I did touring with U2, 32 shows with U2. That's in 92. We opened for them. And then I was in the studio in 93. Like, we drove out in January 1993. So that's what happened between Pod and Last Splash recording.
And you recorded Last Splash in San Francisco?
Yeah.
And you drove from Dayton?
Yeah. We had to take a box truck full of gear careening through the mountains in the snow. It was really, really scary. Jim was driving and we were yelling. And the Wyoming Pass, I mean, it was blocked and we had to spend the night someplace. It was really harrowing. I mean, there was a lot of snow there. I think we went the weird way. Like, we didn't go, like, I don't know what way you go. Then we went into San Fran.
How long did it take to record Last Splash?
A couple months. It was really fun. It was a lot of work. I remember just going to the bathroom just so I could sit there for a minute. Just like, there were so many decisions to be made and so much to do. You know, I just like, it's coming. It was a lot of work. Yeah, we had 2 studios going because, you know, Coast Recorders was a strip. It was in a strip mall, like a little strip. It wasn't a strip mall, huge, but the little strip mall buildings. So it was like a jazz room. It had a really low ceiling. I had thought by looking at the specs, I didn't think about the ceiling height or anything. So I was looking for something that had a little bit more air in it for drums, you know, because I don't really use outboard gear that will gate and also give you a reverb on your snare. You don't, you know, it's not in outboard gear. It's like, it's in mic positioning, you know, and having a nice drum sound in a room, because a drum is an acoustic instrument in a room. So if you have an acoustic instrument in a room, you need to mic it, and you need to mic it properly for it to sound good. And so usually that's how I, you know, get the verb, unless it's to be funny or, you know, to have some sort of crazy thing going on. But anyway, I rented out another studio called Brilliant with a big room. We had to close this big, heavy curtain, and we did some drumming there.
Is the drum sound the most important sound for you on a project usually?
I think for me, if a drum can sound shitty, actually, they can. If they sound shitty cool, and if they're played cool, and if the song is cool, and it's cool beat,
Yeah,
it can sound shitty. But it's not cool to have shitty drums on every single song. I mean, it'd be bad if the whole record had like shitty drum sound, I think. And I'm not used to the shitty drum sound. I'm used to the acoustic drum sound. So if it sounds like not like that, then it's like, that sounds, you know, things are built to go on top of this acoustic drum sound. So it's not going to sound right if it's got a weird, it's sensitive, it's touchy. Put reverb on the snare and a outboard gear. It's just like, excuse me? What? Wait a minute. What's that sound? It's like, what? Maybe. No, I don't think so. But it could be cool.
Before you started recording Last Splash, were you thinking about the project and what you wanted it to sound like, or was it all sort of happening organically? How does that work? How does an album come together usually?
Well, I don't really think about albums. I just think about songs. I think that for me, that makes more sense. Although I guess people think of albums, don't they? But they're probably got their shit together way more than I do. But I don't think about albums because it's like you get enough decent songs together, you're lucky, and you put it out. And you always are looking, I'm always looking at the runtime. How much is it? Is it near 40 at all? 40 minutes. Oh my God, how many minutes? It's 28 minutes. And then you hear the inevitable, Black Sabbath's albums were 28 minutes long. Yeah. We don't need to do it any longer than that. Oh my God. I think they're not even 28 minutes, the Black Sabbath albums. I think they might be fucking 20 minutes long, the albums. Or like 22, because then you get somebody saying, remember, there's more than 11 minutes on one side of an album. It really suffers. The audio suffers. The later the track is on the album, the audio really suffers. We shouldn't make it long at all. That's me.
After this last break, we'll be back with the rest of our conversation with Kim Deal. We're back with the rest of Leah Rose's conversation with Kim Deal.
I want to ask you a little bit about growing up, if you're okay to talk about that.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about your parents. Are they both from West Virginia?
Yes, where we're from, they're from West Virginia, yeah. They're from Tater Holler. And my brother's the only Deal that never worked the coal mines. The first male Deal that never worked the coal mines. He was born down there too. Everybody's down there. We go Thanksgiving, Christmases, everything goes, we go there.
Okay.
They came up to Ohio because after the Korean thing, my dad met my mom, and then you get the GI Bill, you know? Isn't that a great thing? Yes. So they put him to school. So he was a math professor at Marshall University. And then a friend of his from West Virginia was hiring. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is a huge Air Force base in Dayton, Ohio, where the Wright Peace Accords were signed, and for, you know, and the Serbian stuff. So he got a job there. And so Kevin and my mom and dad moved up to Ohio. And then me and Kelley were born like a year later. So.
Okay. So your parents originally met in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Have you heard stories about their childhood? What did they tell you about growing up?
Oh, for sure. They outpour each other. Do you know poor people? They outpour each other. They try to outpour each other. So I listened to my mom and dad try to outpour each other. You know, my dad would always give it to my mother, though. You know, he did a good thing. They would go back and forth and back and forth. But I remember he always ended up saying, you win. She really was way poorer. But dad had he was talked about putting up a newspaper on the inside of the walls because the cold wind blowing through it. So I don't remember him having a good time either.
Yeah.
And they were up in the mountains, because even if it's a holler, you're still up the low part, you're still high. I mean, the mountains of West Virginia are crazy. I mean, because you look out and it's like there's no horizon line anywhere in West Virginia. You never see where the sun is setting, not where they took me.
Do you know their romance story, how they got together?
Yeah, she was a great dancer. And his first words supposedly were, do you want to go to hell and back? Which is a movie, To Hell and Back. That was the first thing he said. You know, he was asking her for a date. Do you want to go to hell and back? You know, to the drive-ins or whatever they do.
I was going to say, that's pretty racy.
It is. And she danced till her ankles were black, which you do because it's coal mining. So there's a lot of coal dust around. So everybody got dirty. So she played in the sand piles when she was young, near the tracks. Grew up in the American coal mining camp that has a company store and stuff like that. And her granddaddy was a coal miner. He died of black lung.
Wow.
And dad lost his teeth on the side of a mountain because he was hitting something and it ricocheted off while he was dangling. Just the front take from here to here, two past the incisors, and then all the front teeth, with the ricochet of the hammer when he was hitting something or other, vein or something of coal, I don't know.
So he worked in a coal mine, but then he went to college.
That's right. He was signed on as a physicist, I believe, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Wow.
Yeah. Then he ended up being, I think it was the director of the avionics lab up there, and he was responsible for the down pilot system and some radar. My brother knows all about it because he really likes that stuff. And yeah.
Did you feel pressure as a kid to follow in his path?
No, because he would never discuss any of that with me. I don't know if he discussed it with Kevin that much either until he got older. Yeah. It was the Depression era, you know, so he didn't really talk that much. He didn't talk about work. He didn't talk about, down pilot projects that he was working on to me. He did he took guitar lessons, and that's where he would have the guitar on the floor. I was 13 and I picked it up and started playing it. And there was a folder there and there was a tablature for King of the Road. And that's when I started picking it up. And he did say, Kimmy, you're learning that guitar quicker than I am. So, and I did. I don't even know if he ever learned how to play guitar, actually.
So do you feel like you had sort of just a natural knack for guitar?
I didn't feel like it, but maybe I did because he didn't learn it and I did. So it seemed easy to me. There's a little picture with the little dots, a little tablature, and you put your little dot fingers on the dots. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then you just keep doing it. It's just sitting there. a quiet thing to do. It was nice. And I enjoy the strings resonating and the guitar body resonating. I think it's a really relaxing, peaceful sound. I like it very much. Yeah.
What were you like when you were in high school? Like, what was your style like? What were you into?
Well, we lived in Huber Heights. It was a Sebs. And it was a smaller town. I think it said 30,000 smiling people. It was a community of brick homes and little streets. And the kids played outside on the street with each other. And there was a lot of other children to play with. So there was, teams of kids running around the streets. So that was nice. And we got called in, when the street lights came on.
Yeah.
And catching lightning bugs. And there was a stand-up swimming pool in the backyard. Kids came over and we...
Did you do whirlpools where everyone runs in
yeah.
Like, yeah.
And the water splashes out and the dad would get mad because they have to put the hose back in. Yes, definitely.
Were you a musician already in high school? Were you known as sort of like, someone who plays?
Yeah, I was playing. Yeah. I wasn't a known musician in high school, no. But I had a guitar and I was writing stuff. I would have died if somebody had heard me, died.
What were you writing about?
Stupid shit. Just horrible stuff.
Do you remember any of your songs from back then?
Yeah, I do. Some of them, yeah. And there was a place called Hera Arena, and that's where all the hard rock. There's a big culture of hard rock in the Midwest, in the Sevs. I mean, we saw Black Oak, Arkansas, Brownsville Station, Sammy Hagar, Marshall Tucker Band, Rush, Nugent, The Outlaws, Rainbow. I mean, it was just part of the touring circuit.
Were you into it?
UFO. Yeah, I liked the hard rock bands. Yeah, some I liked more than the others, I loved Zeppelin and Sabbath and Journey I loved back then. What else did I like? I liked Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Feel the Reaper. The Queen, News of the World album was huge for me.
Yeah. Would you always hang out with Kelley? Like, who was your crew to like go to shows?
Mm-mm. Sometimes I went with Kelley. Sometimes I didn't, I remember being and seeing Kelley like on stage during Marshall Tucker Band. Like she was somehow sitting on the PA or something. It was crazy.
That's cool. Did you think like back then, like, oh, I want to be on stage one day. I want to be a professional musician?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah. No.
Then how did you and Kelley start playing around town? How did that come about?
Probably the first thing we did is I think maybe my mom, who was an early childhood education teacher, she was very involved. She was in Parents Co-op and she was a teacher. She organized it all. And I think they had a booth at the community park for a summer 4th or something like that. And I think there were 2 stools. Oh, and also weddings. We were asked to play weddings for adults. Annie's song was big. Kelley could sing Ave Maria.
Wow.
Kelley sang The Rose, Bette Midler. And we would play like the ground round. It's like people at tables and you would eat peanuts and the shells would just fall on the floor.
Yeah.
You do 4 sets a night.
Wow.
And there wasn't a PA, I don't think, there.
So your ambiance while people are sitting there eating peanuts, drinking.
Absolutely. And we would sing original songs to that, as well as other songs that we're playing.
I wanted to ask you about the Big Sur show that you just recorded.
Didn't that turn out great, those animations?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It really is.
It's really, really nice. And you look like you're having so much fun.
I was really nice. The show was canceled because there was so much rain. It was just raining and raining, and everything was sort of flooded, like the stage itself. Some of the cabling was just sitting in water because it was outdoors, and it just been, there was a deluge for so long. If you imagine people walking in, there was just huge puddles of mud, just even standing where they would be standing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, let's call, and I guess it happens quite often, that there's so much rain. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our tour manager, a guy named Rory, I knew some fellas and they were interested in recording us. And there was an idea about it. And they said, you can come up to Big Sur and record the show. And then the show wasn't happening. So we just went into the woods and they did that. And it turned out so good.
Yeah. Everybody seems so happy and it sounds so beautiful.
Yeah.
How did you pick what songs to play out there?
Well, we wanted to do them. The violin is a good one, stuff to do with violin because we have the violin there. And we kind of picked the ones that work with the instrumentation that's available. So it was pretty easy to pick them.
I love Do You Love Me Now?
Yeah.
That song is so beautiful. When you write like a song like that, is that come from a personal experience or is it just a fictional thing?
That is one of the songs me and Kelley would sing during the sort of, Joe's is a Fish House days.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember, like, we would do many sets in one day, in one evening. You got to do 3 sets or something. And I remember, I think if they were traveling for work, because one of the guys came up and just, who had to, we did it a lot, and they were sitting there in the hotel or nearby or something. And I remember somebody specifically saying they really liked that song. It was good. But then that's not the song that's on the record, though. It's been changed a little bit because I went back at it, in my 20s. I look back at that thing that I used to sing at Joe's is a Fish House. And I just went, this is almost good, but it's so dumb. But the sentiment that what it used to be, the sentiment makes me feel so, it's like, I don't know. It was so easy to like relate to the song in a different way, like in a more of a snarling way, I think.
The way that you first sang it, it was more snarling, or the second way?
The second way, I think, was more snarling. There was something innocent and sort of benign about the first way I did it, although I liked the song and I wanted to do it. But it was easy to just change the arrangement a little bit, make it more menacing. And to me, that the meaning of the song has changed for me. And it doesn't sound like, instead of like when 2 hearts have torn away, now sounds like a bloody heart just torn. It's just so stupid. It's all so dumb. And that I enjoy. That was not the song we sang at Joe's is a Fish House. It was a little different, but this is, if that makes sense.
Do you remember who you wrote it about?
Not really. I mean, I didn't really write it about anybody. They're kind of somebody, but not enough to actually, it was, not really. And I think that's why it was easy to bend into something different because it wasn't solidly about really anything other than, this is a song goes like this. But now the transformation of it being menacing and stuff, it's definitely about some stuff now. Oh, definitely. It means way more now than it did, which is weird to have like, that's a nice successful song of something that meant nothing before that I took apart and just turned it inside. It hates itself now. Good job.
Success.
Yeah.
What was the melody like at first?
It's pretty similar. The melody was pretty similar. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same melody. The arrangements were different and it's just the verses were a little different, stuff like that.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with the new album? Any songs you want to talk about or?
One of the things about the record that I like is that I'm proud of the good relationships I've had with people that I've been playing with in my life, like Mondo and Lindsay. And just working with Steve, I've known since the 80s. and Kelley, and Jim Macphearson's been on it. And Josephine actually played bass on Disobedience, but her bass guitar was weirding out. And so I had replayed it. And then some new people, the Jack Lawrence, he plays bass for Raconteurs.
Okay.
And it's Kentucky. He's from the Greenhorns, since it's sort of a Cincinnati band. I used to, the Teenage Fan Club?
Yeah.
There's a guy named Raymond who's their guitar player, and I used him on the guitar. It was the first time I had played with Raymond. And then, like when coming up with the songs, like I had sang at Albini's wedding with Heather. Me and Kelley went to Hawaii. We were like family. Sang at the wedding, and we played a song that she wanted for her wedding song, a Dolly Parton song. And we did the bridal march. I played the bridal march on guitar. And I went to the island and got a bunch of ukuleles and handed them out so all of us, because there's a lot of musicians, can play along, with the uke, And
that's such a good idea.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was good. It was such a great time. And for a wedding gift, Steve and Heather got us quite like nice ukuleles, And I was packing my stuff up, my gear to go someplace, and I threw the ukulele in. It wasn't even mine. It was the one my sister got. There was a sheet that came in the package, a laminated cord sheet, and I just started picking it up, found how to shoot. My dog has fleas, and then had the laminated cord sheet and started playing around with it. And I wrote this song on it, the ukulele, and in my head it had these melodies and these incredibly complicated orchestral movement happening all the way through it. And I was like, Josephine, she was up, we were going to rehearse for some stuff. I think it was doing all nerve stuff or something. And I grabbed the ukulele. I have written a song on ukulele. And she looked at me and she went, absolutely not. It's just funny. So then I knew like that song would be a solo one. It wouldn't be a Breeders one, It's like, and that's, on the way to thinking about an album,
Is there new Breeders music coming out or working on, or?
We play Disobedience in the Breeders shows. Well, they're all on it.
Yeah.
It gets confusing. It gets confusing.
It is confusing.
So, yeah.
Yes. And yeah, thank you, Kim. It's so nice to talk to you.
And I love talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, and best of luck with all.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to Kim Deal for chatting through her career and the making of her new solo album, Nobody Loves You More. You can hear all of our favorite tracks from the Pixies, the Breeders, and Kim's solo work on a playlist at brokenrecordpodcast.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Broken Record Pod. You can follow us on Twitter at Broken Record. Broken Record is produced and edited by Leah Rose with marketing help from Eric Sandler and Jordan McMillan. Our engineer is Ben Tolliday. Broken Record is a production of Pushkin Industries. And if you like this show, please remember to share, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Our theme music's by Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond.